The Easter Bunny in the basement. This happened when I was really little, maybe 6 or 7. I don't remember much from that age, but this I remember clearly. Not every second, of course, but certain details have stayed with me like scars in my mind. They never faded, no matter how much I tried to convince myself it was just a dream. Easter has always been a big deal in my family. We're religious, like really religious. So for us, Easter wasn't just about candy or pastel decorations. It was church, prayer, family, and more church. Sunday services always felt like special events, but Easter Sunday? That was something else entirely. My parents would dress me in uncomfortable clothes. We'd sit through a long, packed service, and afterward I'd be sent downstairs for Sunday school, what our church called CCD. That year, the church had gone all out. The sanctuary upstairs was dressed with white flowers and golden cloths, but the basement classrooms were even more festive. The hallway was lined with pastel streamers, cutouts of lambs and crosses, little cartoon drawings of Jesus with smiling kids taped up between doors. I remember being excited, not just because of the decorations, but because the teachers were wearing those silly bunny ear headbands and promised we'd get chocolate eggs later. My classroom was the third on the left. The hallway down there was long and narrow, with classrooms on each side, ending in 2 bathrooms and a gray steel door that led outside. That door was always supposed to stay locked from the inside. We were told never to use it. If you walked out and it shut behind you, you wouldn't be able to get back in. The adults warned us again and again. Anyway, during class, I raised my hand to go to the bathroom. The Easter service had run long, and I couldn't hold it any longer. The teacher nodded and let me go. I walked down the hallway, happy and carefree, still humming the Easter song we had sung during Mass. The boys' bathroom was silent when I stepped in. Too quiet, honestly. The lights buzzed overhead with that eerie fluorescent hum. I picked a stall and did my thing, my feet dangling above the floor. But then, I heard it. A sound from the next stall over. It was this slow, dragging noise, metal against metal, uneven and scraping. It didn't sound like someone moving normally. No footsteps, no toilet paper rustle. Just that scrape. I froze for a second, but shook it off. Probably just another kid messing around, I thought. So I finished up and stepped out to wash my hands. And that's when I saw him. The stall door beside mine was opening, slowly, and a figure stepped out. It was a man in an Easter bunny costume. At first I smiled. I mean, I was a kid, right? What else would I think? It didn't register immediately that something was wrong, but looking back now, I can see the details that should have scared me. The suit was saggy, like it didn't fit quite right. It was stained in weird places, and the fur wasn't bright white. It was grayish, almost like it had been dragged through dirt. One of the plastic eyes on the bunny head was crooked, sewn back on at an angle. Still, I wasn't afraid. Not yet. I said, "Hi." I remember that clearly. I even waved. He just stood there, half in the stall, not moving. His head was tilted slightly, like he was sizing me up. Then, after a long pause, he stepped out fully, raised one hand, and pointed toward the back door. "You're the lucky chosen child," he said. "I have a gift for you outside." I know how that sounds now. I know how wrong it was. But I was 6. I thought the Easter Bunny had picked me for something special. So I followed him, without a second thought. I pushed open the gray door, the one that was supposed to stay locked, and stepped outside. The air was cool and quiet. The man didn't say anything more. He just started walking, guiding me across the church parking lot. I followed him, half skipping with excitement. But then, I saw it. Another Easter bunny. This one was standing by a car, mostly hidden by a dumpster and some overgrown bushes. And the moment I saw him, something in my stomach twisted. I stopped walking. The first bunny, my bunny, tried to tug at my hand, but I resisted. My excitement had turned to confusion, and then something darker. Why were there two? Why was the second one standing so still? That's when I heard it. A scream. A woman's voice, loud and sharp, cutting through the air like glass. "Hey! Hey! What are you doing?" It was Miss Sabrina, one of the Sunday school teachers. She had just come outside, thank God. The man in the costume dropped my hand and ran. I ran too, but toward her. I reached her arms just as the car's engine roared. I turned around in time to see it peeling out of the lot. For a second, a split second, I thought I saw someone in the back seat. A kid, staring out the window. The police were called. My parents were frantic. I remember my mom sobbing for hours after we got home. The officers asked me a lot of questions, especially about the kid I thought I saw. I told them everything I could, but it wasn't much. Just glimpses. The investigation didn't go far. No other kids were reported missing. No surveillance cameras in the back lot. Nothing to go on. But here's what haunts me. That guy knew the church. He knew where to wait. He knew the door might be unlocked. He knew what time the kids were in Sunday school. And he wasn't alone. Years later, every Easter, I still think about that second bunny. About the scraping in the stall, the stitched eye, and the car I was nearly pushed into. I was 6 years old. I almost vanished that day. And I don't think I was the first. The manhunt gone wrong. I had just graduated high school the year this happened. It was spring break, and Easter was right around the corner. My friends and I weren't exactly the type to do egg hunts anymore. At least, not the kind your parents organize. But we still loved the energy of that time of year. Something about the weather, the late sunsets, and that strange excitement in the air made us want to do something fun. Or maybe something stupid. There were 6 of us that night. Me, Jake, Race, Chuck, Arthur, and Raz. Raz wasn't his real name. His last name was Razzie, but no one called him anything else. He had the biggest house by far, and since his parents were out of town until Friday night, we had the place all to ourselves. His backyard bordered a large wooded area, and we'd spent plenty of nights out there before, sometimes camping, sometimes just messing around. That night, Chuck suggested we play our version of Easter Manhunt. It was basically a mix of hide-and-seek and egg hunt. 2 teams, one hiding, one seeking. But the twist was that the seekers also had to protect 3 hidden plastic eggs. If the hiders found and captured the eggs without being tagged, they won. If all hiders were caught, the seekers won. Stupid? Maybe. But we were bored and 17, so it felt like genius at the time. Jake and Arthur ended up hiding. I was with Chuck and Raz as seekers. The rest of us grabbed flashlights and some of Raz's mom's leftover plastic eggs. We agreed on the boundaries. Past the creek was off limits, and so was the horse pasture beyond the slope. It was just us and the woods. By the time we started, the sun had dipped below the tree line. It wasn't pitch black yet, but it was getting there. We gave the hiders 10 minutes to get into position and used that time to stash our eggs. When the countdown hit 0, we split up. I peeled off to the left, moving carefully, only using my flashlight sparingly. If one of the hiders saw a beam of light, they'd run. The trick was to be sneaky. A few minutes in, I saw movement. just a quick shape behind a tree, about 30 feet away. I froze. Then I saw it again. Someone crouched, half hidden behind a thick pine trunk. I figured it was Race. He always picked spots close to the Seekers, thinking he was being clever. So I tried to sneak up behind him. I dropped to a crouch myself, crept along the leaves, and just as I got close enough, I lunged and shouted, "Gotcha!" But when the person turned around, it wasn't Race. It wasn't anyone I knew. It was a man, a grown man. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were wide, bloodshot and twitchy. His clothes were torn and filthy, and he smelled like rotting meat and gasoline. For a second I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Then he tackled me. I hit the ground hard. My flashlight flew out of my hand. He was on top of me, pressing down with his full weight, both hands wrapped around my neck. He didn't say a word, just stared at me with those glassy, haunted eyes while I struggled to breathe. I thought that was it. I really did. I remember thinking this is how I die, in Raz's backyard during a stupid Easter game. Then a beam of light hit us. It flickered across the trees, Chuck's flashlight. He was running toward us, yelling my name. The man saw it too. He let go of my throat, jumped off me without a sound, and bolted into the trees like some kind of animal. Just gone. I lay there, gasping for air until Chuck helped me up. He looked shaken too. He'd seen the whole thing from a distance, but hadn't realized how serious it was until he saw me on the ground. I wanted to chase the guy. Adrenaline does that to you. But Chuck stopped me, grabbed my arm and said, "No, that's a terrible idea." And he was right. We ran back to the house, called everyone to regroup, and told them what happened. Everyone was freaked out. But then Arthur said something that made it worse. He said he'd seen two people in the woods before the game started. At first, he thought it was just some of us cheating, scouting too early. But now, he wasn't so sure. If Chuck saw the attacker and Arthur saw two others before we even started playing, that meant there were at least 3 people out there with us. 3 strangers, in the dark, watching us. That realization chilled me more than the attack itself. What if Chuck hadn't shown up when he did? What if I had chased the guy and run into his friends? We wanted to call the cops. I did anyway. But Raz, he shut it down fast. He said he wasn't even supposed to have people over. If the police showed up and found out, he'd be grounded forever. It was dumb, I know. But at the time, I caved. We all did. We were scared, confused, young. I didn't sleep much that night. I left early the next morning. Didn't even say goodbye. A week later, Raz told us he went back out to find the plastic eggs we'd left behind. He didn't see anything strange, but I could tell he was still shaken. We all were. None of us talked about it again, really, not seriously. But I still think about it. Because somewhere out there, maybe even watching from the trees that night, were 3 strangers. And we were the Easter hunt, the torchbearers in the woods. Every Easter, my family makes the same trip out to my Uncle John's place. He lives way out in the sticks. Big property, giant wraparound porch, and nothing but trees for miles in every direction. Most people would probably call it peaceful. Personally, I always found it isolating, like the world just sort of stopped existing out there. This story happened last Easter, so about a year ago. I wasn't a kid anymore. I was in college, home for the break. And even though I dreaded these family get-togethers, I knew skipping one would mean 100 angry texts from my mom. So I went. Uncle John's house is beautiful, no doubt. Massive, with 3 stories, high wooden ceilings, and a wide view of the backyard that seems to go on forever. The problem wasn't the house, it was everyone inside it. My extended family is all country, like hardcore. Hunters, ranchers, people who fix their own trucks and smoke meat in barrels. I'm not that. Never have been. They don't make fun of me or anything, but I always feel like I'm visiting a different planet. The only one I relate to even a little is Kevin, my cousin. He's a couple years older than me, but always makes an effort to hang out during these gatherings. He's cool, quiet, always reading or hiking. I respect that. The morning after we arrived, Kevin and I were playing pool in the basement to escape the crowd upstairs. Kids were screaming, adults were drinking too early in the day. It was the usual holiday madness. At some point, Kevin started talking about the woods behind Uncle John's house. I'd seen them from the back windows before, dense and tall, like a green wall. He said they went on for miles and were full of weird stuff. I figured he was joking, but then he got serious. "There's this spot I found a while back," he said. "It's deep in the trees, probably a 40-minute hike. I haven't told anyone else about it. You want to come?" I hesitated. I'm not really a nature guy, but I was also dangerously bored. So I said sure. We told Uncle John where we were headed. He didn't even blink, just said to be back before dinner. Kevin grabbed a flashlight, just in case, and we set out into the trees. At first, it was kind of nice. Quiet. Peaceful. The sunlight filtered down through the leaves in a soft, golden way. Kevin led the way with confidence, walking along what looked like a faint animal trail. It didn't take long before we were completely surrounded. No more sounds of the house, no more family noise. Just the woods. We'd been walking about 20 minutes when we both heard it. Thunk. A heavy rhythmic sound, like wood hitting wood. But it wasn't random. It had a pattern. A pause, then another thunk, then another, like someone hammering something large. Kevin stopped in his tracks. I saw his whole posture stiffen. "You hear that?" I nodded. "What is it?" "Could be a hunter," he said slowly. "Or someone working on something." But his voice didn't sound convinced. Neither did mine when I asked, "Should we turn back?" He didn't answer at first, just kept staring into the trees. Then he shook his head. "Let's just check it out. We'll stay low." So we kept walking, more cautiously now, watching every step. The sound grew louder for a while, then suddenly stopped. The silence afterward was worse. That's when Kevin held out his arm in front of me and whispered, "Look." I followed his gaze. Up in the trees, nailed to 3 trunks, were upside-down crosses. 3 of them. High, at least 15 or 20 feet above the ground. Too high for someone to just climb up and do it without gear. Each one was charred around the edges, like it had been burned or scorched. Before I could say anything, I saw movement, just off to the right. A man was standing there. Thick beard, flannel shirt, heavy boots. But what struck me most was his stare. Cold, unreadable, like he'd been expecting us. Kevin stepped slightly in front of me. The man didn't move, just stared. Then he spoke. "You shouldn't be here." Kevin muttered an apology and grabbed my arm. "We're leaving," he said clearly. And we did. We didn't run, but we walked fast, not looking back until we were almost out of the woods. My heart was pounding the entire time. It felt like we were being watched every step of the way. Back at the house, we told Uncle John. He asked us to describe the man. When we did, his face changed. He shook his head and said none of his neighbors matched that description. Not even close. Someone suggested we go back out there with rifles. But Uncle John shut that down quick. No need for confrontation, he said. Just stay close to the house. That night I went to bed early. I couldn't stop thinking about the crosses, or the man. I kept telling myself it was just some weird recluse, maybe someone camping illegally. I woke up just after 5 a.m. Couldn't sleep. So I wandered up to Uncle John's study on the 3rd floor, thinking I'd read or scroll for a while. The room has this big old window that overlooks the entire backyard. That's when I saw them. 3 figures, standing just beyond the tree line, each one holding a torch. They weren't walking, they weren't moving at all, just standing there, watching the house. I backed away from the window slowly. Then I sprinted to Uncle John's room and woke him up. Told him what I saw. He didn't hesitate. Grabbed his rifle, stepped out onto the deck in his boots and pajama pants, scanned the woods. By then, they were gone. But he still fired 3 warning shots into the air. The entire house woke up after that, and the rest of Easter Day was spent in a haze of unease and questions. We left by afternoon. I haven't been back since. Uncle John says nothing else strange has happened, but I don't believe that. Not really, because I know what I saw. And every Easter since, I wonder, who were they? And more importantly, what were they waiting for?